So this is my third time trying to make this video. I think before my problem was that my audio wasn't set up right, so my headphones weren't dying, they just kept turning off because nothing was happening because of how my wireless headphones work. So today I want to talk about why I dislike FOIL as a teaching method for solving the multiplication of binomials. Um, And so the reason I'm making this video is because I potentially want to be a teacher one day. So I want to start getting in the habit of being able to talk and write and think at the same time, like ad hoc. Like obviously I would prepare for a class beforehand, but I'm not going to have a memorized sheet of paper. Like I recently did a presentation in my math class, and I literally everyone else in the class was able to sort of like present without having their information right in front of them, but I felt like I needed to constantly refer to like a sheet of paper just to remember the next sentence I was going to say. So this is to try to help me get out of those habits. Um, and I chose this foil because it's something I'm sort of passionate about. Sort of as in I am passionate about it, but it's not like the biggest thing in the world, right? It's just something I feel like is a mistake that we're currently making when we teach kids Algebra 1. So first let's talk about what FOIL is. So FOIL is a mnemonic device for the phrase first, outside, inside, and last. And what these words refer to is they're basically an algorithm to be able to correctly perform multiplication on two binomials. So let's take two binomials. Let's take two really simple ones like 2x plus 1, maybe 3x plus 2. And I'm just going to show you how you do FOIL. So FOIL is you just take the first two terms of each binomial. So first, you multiply them. Then you add them to the multiplication of the product of the outside terms. So by outside we mean the numbers that are on the outside. So like these would be inside numbers, these would be outside numbers. These are not technical terms, right? It's not like in mathematics you're reading a book and you're like the outside numbers are the number on the edges of the binomials. That's not true. It's just sort of shorthand for remembering what numbers you're talking about. So we multiply these two numbers. We add these to the product of the inside terms. So 3x plus 8 times 1. And then finally, we multiply the two last terms, which are 1 times 2. And this is not a minus sign, this is just a mistake in my writing. So if we solve that, this is just 6x squared plus 4x plus 3x plus 2, or even more simplified, 7x plus 2. Okay, so I don't dislike FOIL because it doesn't work. Like if you use this method on any two binomials, it will always work. So my problem with FOIL is that I think it ignores the greater picture of why we're teaching mathematics. If our goal is just to turn out humans that can endlessly solve binomials, I think this is fine. But that's not really what we're trying to accomplish. If we need to solve 100 binomials, we can just throw that into a computer. Um, so that's not really why we need to teach it. So for me, when FOIL was introduced to me, FOIL was just sort of introduced as a trick to get the right answer. But there's nothing really tricky about FOIL. It's just a distributive property. So let's think about the distributive property as it's introduced maybe a little bit earlier in our mathematical educations. So orange here. So let's take this expression here. So the way we're taught to simplify this expression is just to multiply the 2 by each of the terms of the binomial. So we distribute we do 2 times 2x plus, distribute here, 2 times 1. So this simplifies to 4x plus 2. So pretty simple. So I feel like all we need to do is we don't need to, once we get to, so here we have a monomial and a binomial. So once we get to 2 binomials, I don't feel like we have to change our language and be like, oh, now there's 2 binomials, it's more complicated, we have to use this trick, right? It's not actually too much more complicated than our original, our problem down here. We had a monomial. So let's take our problem that we had before, which was 2x plus 1 times by 3x plus 2. I feel like when we teach this, we don't even have to talk about FOIL. We don't have to have a mnemonic device. All we have to say is that it's just the distributive property. So we have a binomial. We have basically 2 numbers that are grouped together. We have an expression of 2 numbers that are grouped together. So we can just kind of think of this as one number. We can kind of think of this 2x plus 1 kind of like it's just a 2. And so we want to just take this whole expression here and distribute it. So we have 2x plus 1 equals 3x plus 2x plus 1 times 2. And then we get the situation we have here where we have a monomial times a binomial, and then we can just use our previous methods for solving this, which again is just the distributive property. 6x squared plus 3x plus 4x plus 2. So again, we get 6x squared plus 7x plus 2. So same answer. So maybe an argument you could make against my argument is you could do both, right? You could teach that having 2 binomials is just the distributive method, and you can teach FOIL. And maybe this would work, but my experience, students don't really remember. That's not the way students really internalize FOIL. And I sort of have 2 examples of sort of mistakes I see students make in either logic or in calculation that makes me think that they don't really understand what's going on with FOIL. They just kind of think of it as a trick. So the most common mistake I see is that students don't really take to heart that FOIL is a one-trick pony. FOIL only works if you have 2 binomials. So what happens when we get to a trinomial? Oops, 1. So what happens here? I've literally seen students do this. First, outside, inside, last. They don't even look at this term, and then they'll just do, 2x, 3x squared plus 2x times 1 plus 3x squared times 1. Then they do 1 times 1. Like, this is wrong. Like, we haven't even multiplied. We haven't done anything with this 2x. They just completely ignore it. So they remember FOIL, and our FOIL works for, binomials. It doesn't work for trinomials. Like, once you have trinomials, that's it. You can't use FOIL anymore. So I feel like because we didn't teach students that multiplying 2 binomials is just an extension of the distributive property, that once they see a trinomial, they don't have any tools. All they see is a more complicated problem that they don't have any tools to solve with now. But really, if all we teach kids is that, or we teach students, sorry, is that it's just a distributive method. They can extrapolate this to here. They could most certainly be like, oh yeah, this is just a distributive property again. So I have 2x plus 1, 3x squared plus 2x plus 1, and they can extrapolate this idea to this problem. They can go 2x, oops, that's not correct. They can just go, oops, 3x squared times 2x plus 1 plus 2x times 2x plus 1 plus 1 times 2x plus 1. And it's just distributing this across here. And if you need some more convincing that this works, like basically a thing that sometimes you hear with math teachers telling students is like, you want to multiply everything in here by everything in here, which I don't feel like is very descriptive. Like, that's not very helpful. What that means is this number needs to be multiplied by this number, this number, this number. This number needs to be multiplied by this number, this number, this number. So you end up with 6 terms. Here you have 6 terms too. You have these two. You have these two. Then you have these two. Yeah. So I don't even feel like I need to go through it. Hopefully that's clear. Sorry if it's not. But yeah, I feel like when you teach students this method versus FOIL, you're giving them a method that allows them that they can seamlessly move between different sizes of polynomials. Like, no matter how big your polynomials are, this method will work for solving them, or for not necessarily solving them, but simplifying the expression. And so the other thing I dislike about FOIL is the fact that students don't really seem to understand, and actually, not even students, teachers, I've seen teachers actually not understand this concept, that they're just very rigid about FOIL, the order of FOIL. And it kind of makes sense, you have order of operations, you tend to not want to change the order of things, but as an experiment once, I think about a year ago, I asked a student who was, doing pretty well, like understanding multiplying binomials and stuff like that. I was like, what if I changed FOIL and did like LIOF instead? Like, would it work to do last, inside, outside first? And the student immediately answered no. There's no way that could work. It's not even possible. But that's actually not true. The order of FOIL doesn't matter at all. And so again, it's like we've kind of taught kids a trick to solve 2 binomials, but we haven't really taught them what's going on with these numbers, like why they are interacting the way they are. And so I think when you teach them the distributive method way, you can kind of see that it doesn't matter that we do first, outside, inside, last, right? Like with our we go here, we will note that this problem here, where we just used the distributive property, we didn't use first, outside, inside, last. And actually what we did was 2x times 3x, which is first, and then we did 1 times 3, which is, so we did do f, and then we did 3x times 1, which is inside. And then we did 2x times 2, which is outside. And then we did our last terms. So we did YOL. And it totally worked. Like, the order, and actually, something we learn about integers is that we don't always have to go left to right when we were working with integers in this case. Like, we can distribute the other way too. Like, we could have taken this problem here and gone, change to yellow. And we don't have to take this and distribute it that way. We could have taken this term here and distributed it this way. And then we would have had 2x times by 3x plus 2 plus, sorry, I lost track of my thought for a second, 3x plus 2. And then we have 6x squared plus 4x plus 3x plus 2, or again, 6x squared plus 7x plus 2. And in this case, we did first, we did 2 outside. I guess this is, oh, outside. Maybe this is FOIL actually. Outside, and then 1 times 3. Actually, this is FOIL. But yeah, so, but just to show you, it does work if we do a different order. So let's do OIL. So outside, which is 2 times 2, 2x times 2. Inside, 1, 3x plus last, which is 1 times 2, and then first, which is 2x plus 3x. We have 4x plus 3x plus 2 plus 6x squared, or x squared plus 7x plus 2. So we get the same answer despite the order. And so let's think about why that happened, right? So let's think about order of operations. So in order of operations, it's important to do, we work left to right, and we want to do multiplication before addition. But when we are distributing, when we're using the distributive property, we're always doing multiplication before we're doing addition. So it doesn't actually matter what order we do the multiplication in. So all we're doing is we're coming up with, for no matter what order we do it in, we're always going to have a 2x times 2, a 1 times 3x, a 1 times 2, and a 2x times 3x. No matter what order we do it in, we're always going to get these terms, and we're always going to add them together. And since addition is commutative, yeah, addition is commutative. It doesn't matter, like 7x plus 6x squared plus 2, these two expressions are equivalent. It doesn't matter what order we add in. It just doesn't matter. It's a property of addition. So I feel like, and like my hand to God, I've actually seen a teacher, like a kid go up to a chalkboard and start doing a problem using FOIL, and then he does it out of order. He does like FIOL or something like that. And the teacher is like, no, stop, you need to go back and do it in the right order. And this just stuns me, because it means that we are more interested in the algorithm than we are in exploring how these numbers work together and why they work together. Like, what it basically kind of stuns me, because it just kind of goes back to the idea of like, what are we trying to achieve with mathematics? Like, why are we teaching kids mathematics? We aren't teaching kids mathematics to churn out, yeah, people that can do arithmetic. Like, that's completely unnecessary. We really need kids to be, or I'm sorry, we really need students to be engaging in with the numbers in a meaningful way, to really understand how they work together, to really thoughtfully like approach these problems. So because that's what we actually need, right? We don't need people to be able to turn out binomials. We need people to be able to use their own logic and their own thinking and know how things work together to solve problems. So this is why I think FOIL is a terrible teaching method, and I hope you enjoyed this video.